Welcome back. This is China Now, 中国现在。我们为了来的，我们是 Nansu, who is a senior investigative reporter for Epoch Times, and yours truly, Michael Olson, who once dreamed in Chinese of going to China and helping to rebuild the nation into a modern mirror of our own United States of America, but was dissuaded from doing so by the great chairman himself, Mao Zedong. He said, "No, don't do it, Olson. You'll never last a minute." And so I took his advice and turned my back on that opportunity. But I've always been a lover of China, that China that existed in antiquity. And what a place. Do you ever miss that place, Nansu?
Oh, you're talking about the China and Chinese culture that's prior to the CCP.
Exactly. And I guess, when I was studying Chinese literature and language, the portrait being painted of Chairman Mao, even in his own poetry, was the love of his country and the desire to see it blossom into a modern country with equality in fraternity and all of those wonderful socialist notions that we associate with the French Revolution, I guess. And yet, what came of that was a totalitarian fascism that we have today, in which those peasants that Chairman Mao sought to hold up have become mere chives for the Chinese Communist Party to harvest and eat, as it were. So I'm glad I didn't go there, and I'm glad you came out of there. So I guess in a sense we both escaped, right?
Yep.
So, okay, today we're going to pick up some more stories. We're on the road. This is October. We're looking forward in 3 weeks to the Chinese Communist Party's fourth plenum, which lots of rumbling going on in Changnan High as to who's going to be the leader. But as Nansu always says, the leader is always going to be the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, and the goal is always the same: common destiny for the world. And that includes you and I. So we pick up the stories here as we find them and try to figure out what exactly they mean. We just closed the last hour with a story about China's invasion of Mexico and all of the other Belt and Road nations of the world as well. And so now we're going to pick up a story about the Great China Firewall leak. And of course, the Great China Firewall is the firewall, like the Great Wall itself, that China has built up to contain its internet and its internet freedom, which people don't really have at all. This is out of an Epoch Times story. Internet freedom company Dynamic Internet Technology has identified 193 developers behind the recent leak of 100,000 documents that shed light on how China is exporting mass surveillance and censorship tools to authoritarian clans. Well, remember the last hour we talked about how China is invading Mexico. So as it has other countries around the world, it not only exports its enterprises, its state-owned enterprises, which in effect are like military units of the CCP that don't carry guns. They carry shovels and rakes, and they build things on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. So the other thing, that's not all they export either. One of the things, as pointed out by Dynamic Internet Technology, that they're exporting is the means to control domestic populations with surveillance and censorship tools. And that's a great thing to have if you are aspire to be a totalitarian dictator of a country. How do you control the people? Well, China, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, has certainly demonstrated how to do that in China. And in doing so, in effect, has turned China, one of the history's greatest nations, into a prison, because it now has the ability to control everybody with the flick of a switch. Is that a fair thing to say, Nansu?
I think that's quite exact.
So that China has this technology in hand. Incidentally, guess who gave it to them? Yes, us, U.S. So it has this technology. So why not sell it too, along with its fighter jets and Navy ships and other arms? Because if you can get a country to accept your internet firewall, your great firewall, then you, as the receiver of this technology, become a slave to the CCP, who controls the technology. So there it is. It's just almost exactly the same concept as sending in um, your construction companies to build a dam. Once you do that, you control the dam. So once you send in your firewall, your internet firewall, to help the resident dictator control his or her population, you control the dictator because you control that technology. So the documents leaked originated from a Chinese company called Geej Tech Networks and Mesa Laboratory, which is, of course, a research institute under the state-controlled Chinese Academy of Sciences. So, and we often talk, Nansu, about how science and military are welded together by national policy. Is that not true?
Yeah, it's true.
So whatever science comes up with, the government owns and the military uses. So developers reference the Great Firewall that the Chinese Communist Party regime uses to censor the internet in China, but the project that was leaked deals with commercial sales of such technology to other clients. And of course, that's what we're talking about. The documents revealed that Geej has sold technology used to suppress citizens to the governments of Kazakhstan, Ethiopia, Pakistan, Burma, Xinjiang, and at least one other unknown government. The files included correspondence, internal minutes, technical details of their products, and so on and so on and so on. The CEO of Dynamic Technology previously told Epoch Times that his company has created tools such as Freegate to allow people in China to bypass the regime's firewall. The files were comprehensive enough that Dynamic Internet Technology was able to create a tool that identified individual developers and their respective contributions, lines of code each developer contributed, and whether those developers had contributed to other open source projects. These systems empower client governments to conduct both broad-scale population monitoring and internet shutdowns, while simultaneously enabling granular surveillance of internet users and targeted blocking and censorship. So, very interesting that those who developed means of controlling the internet by building a firewall and selling it to other countries are now being hacked themselves and exposed. here they are, all 193 of them. So I guess what goes around comes around when it comes to internet firewalls. So if you build a wall, we'll figure out how to tunnel under it and find you. So it does fit in with the whole concept of the CCP's um, mercantilism, that not only does your state-owned enterprises sell bridges and highways and whatnot, but and military equipment, and of course the technology to control people. So it's all bundled up in one brilliant package. And I guess when it gets right down to it, it's pretty much modeled on what we have done over the course of our country's history too. It is we get people to work with us, and in working with us, they become more like us. And I guess that's what China's doing too. They're working with governments and getting them to be more like the Chinese Communist Party by providing them all of the tools to be just like the CCP. Nansu?
Uh, well, we pay respect to freedom. They don't, right?
And that's the intrinsic difference.
Yeah,
But if you're a dictator, you don't want your citizens running around being free and thinking for themselves. That's the last thing you want. So if you're a dictator, whose country's salespeople do you listen to? Those of the CCP or those of the USA?
well, the difference is that we pay respect to individualism, and the CCP it's always try to promote the collectivism.
You've often brought that up, Nansu, in our conversations about how communism is inhumane.
That's right.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because they basically the system is in every way crash the humanity. Now let's go back to the very original ideology of from Karl Marx about communism. So he said that communism it's a world that everybody will work as hard as possible.
From each according to their abilities, to each according to their need, right?
That's right, right. So that's uh, that's against the humanity, and also they are the way they try to use to realize the communism it's by violent revolution, so which is also against the humanity. So humanity have two parts. One part is the bad part, let's say that's our greed, and another part it's a good part that we help others. And so the communism by the violent revolution is against the good part of humanity, and the ideology itself is against the bad part of humanity. Uh, both part of humanity cannot be denied, but the communism in the very first day it was born against both good part or bad part of humanity. So therefore, it's entirely inhumane. And And if you go to the communist country, you can see the communist system. It's just built that way.
And you mentioned, you didn't say it, but you hinted at the lack of morality. And the Western culture is built on a Judeo-Christian ethic of morality, in
Well,
which
yeah, it's true because here in the United States, our morality it's not from our government; it's from our Creator. So it's not decided by the majority vote. Now, it's the same for the traditional Chinese culture prior to communism. It's the same way. So now, once the communism comes and the communist system comes, they basically crush all the religion, all the belief system that that believe there is a higher morality above the government, the morality from our creator. They crush that, and so therefore all the traditional moralities are gone.
such as thou shalt not kill, and so on.
That's right.
And so, um, when you have a government lacking in morality, and furthermore suppressing morality and doing everything you can to deny morality, you end up with a population of chives without morality, without the ethic of helping each other out, of forgiving one another, and of loving thy neighbor, and all of those things that constitute that Western morality. And so then it's possible to start setting up slave factories, body part exchange hospitals, uh, churches wherein the God is the government. And so there, without that morality, then it's much easier to do things to treat, I guess, to treat people like chives. And that's the inhumanity of it, is it not?
It's true. That's what it is in China. And they are bring the regime, it's using its economic engine to bring that kind of process to every country around the world who sign up to the Belt and Road Project, and also to every country around the world who are buying the Chinese products from China.
So it's not just the merchandise they're bringing that they can sell for 5 to 14% lower than domestic producers can sell it for. It's everything else that they're bringing with that.
Yeah, it's the value. It's the communist value they are bringing to every society around the world.
And in an effort to ensure the common destiny of the world, which is to make everybody in the world subservient to the Chinese Communist Party. It is the common destiny that Xi Jinping speaks about all the time. It is the goal. And its chief funder over the past 30 years has been the United States of America. And do you think we're waking up to the fact that we did that?
Well, we have to, otherwise it will be too late.
Otherwise, it'll be too late. Yeah. And so, when we look at our neighbor to the south, Mexico, and see Mexico City, the the United Nations heritage site of Mexico City, the heart of Mexico City, being subsumed in this CCP mercantilism, it is, I guess it's like a cancer. How do you stop cancer? That's
Well, you do operations, you do a surgery.
And that's what we all have to come to grips with. Well, at any rate, the CCP, by virtue of its internet firewall, the great internet firewall of China, is exporting the technology clearly to whichever totalitarian government would like to totally control its population, as the CCP is totally controlling the population of people in China. Same technology, same economic principles, same religious principles as well. So with that, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the Chinese Communist Party's new Green Deal. Going bust? Could it happen? Well, stay tuned and find out, because we will be right back.
It's high time to celebrate the opening of the new Hook Outlet Dispensary, 1129 Mission in Santa Cruz. Get in on the opening fun and really low prices on the Hook's unmatched selection of top quality medical and recreational cannabis flower, vapes, drinks, gummies, and concentrates. The Hook Outlet is now the West Side's source for finest cannabis at the lowest prices. Get in on all the opening fun and low prices at the all-new Hook Outlet. HookOutlet.com for details and deals.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you.
800-850-5360. 800-850-5360. 800-850-5360. That's 800-850-5360.
Attention content producers. You can have access to a complete digital media production facility at Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on Soquel Avenue. Easily rent video and audio equipment, a studio with green screen, editing suite, and audio booth, all at can't say no rates. Schedule a tour to see for yourself at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
We are back. We are the gang of two. Don Su, Michael Olson, and we have China Now. 中国现在, friend or foe, war or peace. Putting it on the table for you today for your consideration. I guess we've always assumed it was going to be peace, but we're not so assuming of that anymore. As a matter of fact, it's a pretty much foregone conclusion by a lot of people that it's going to be war now, because of the position of Xi Jinping. He's in a pretty tough place with respect to his legacy, which is centered and focused on the retaking or the taking of Taiwan. They have never owned Taiwan. The CCP has never owned Taiwan. But he insists that they do own it, and he's going to take it away from the world community. Is that a fair assessment?
Now, wait a minute. Let's just re-emphasize that the U.S. State Department just came out and clarified Taiwan's sovereignty. It's undecided, and also, you know what? Who was the very first person historically said that Taiwan's sovereignty was undecided? It was President Truman.
Truman.
Yeah. Now, so State Department, 2 weeks ago, just came out and then re-emphasized that, and in response to the State Department's statement, Taiwan's government, show to the public a piece of document that in 1949 the U.S. government entrusted the Republic of China government in Taiwan, that's Taiwan's government, to manage Taiwan. So U.S. government entrusted Taiwan's government in 1949 to manage the island. That's what it is. But the sovereignty itself has not been decided.
Well, is it true that the Chinese Communist Party has never exercised control over the island of Taiwan?
It's true.
Okay, so they've never owned it.
They never owned it. It was U.S. military, American men and women in military service who paid their blood to defeat the Japanese military in World War II. So based on the presidential order from President Truman in 1945, the U.S. Military leader was the supreme leader of Japan, and Taiwan and Japanese emperor, as well as the entire Japanese government, was the subordinate of U.S. military leaders. So basically, as a part of Japan in 1945, Taiwan's ultimate ruler was the U.S. government. And in 1951, when Japan signed the treaty to 48 other winning nations to end World War II, that's the Treaty of San Francisco Treaty, which was signed in the San Francisco War Memorial Opera House, which is still there today.
Yeah.
And Japan gave up the sovereignty of Taiwan, but never say who this sovereignty will be given to in the treaty. So therefore, Taiwan's sovereignty is not decided.
So the Chinese Communist Party's claim on Taiwan is based on whatever it can dream up, but there's no real title saying that the CCP or Chinese Communist Party owns China or the Taiwan. So,
no, it's baseless. Whatever they say, it's baseless, basically.
That being said, it's the stated objective, the long stated objective of Taiwan, of the CCP chairman Xi Jinping, that he is going to take Taiwan and incorporate it into China, whether the world wants that to happen or not. And that's his repeated claim that he often uses to push it. And so that's kind of what we're looking at to see how that is all going to shake up. There was a pretty good piece, let's see, in about Xi Jinping bargaining, establishing a bargaining position with Donald Trump, in which he would get Trump to agree that, yes, Taiwan belongs to China for some kind of great economic deal that the CCP could strike with the United States. So this is a piece out of, let's see, MSN and Wall Street Journal. So, having set the stage for a year for high-level engagement with the Trump administration, Xi Jinping is now chasing his ultimate prize, which, according to the people familiar with the matter, is a change in U.S. policy that Beijing hopes could isolate Taiwan. As President Trump has shown interest in striking an economic accord with China in the coming year, the people say, the Chinese leader is planning to press his American counterpart to formally state that the U.S. opposes Taiwan's independence. Since coming to power in late 2012, Xi has made bringing Taiwan under Beijing's control a key tenet of his China dream of national revival and common destiny. But that's my comment. Now, well into an unprecedented third term, he has repeatedly emphasized that reunification is inevitable and can't be stopped by outside forces, a reference to Washington's political and military support to Taipei. Now, what does he mean by reunification, Nansu?
Well, the idea, they say Taiwan is a part of. See, there's a difference. Okay, everybody have to understand there's a difference between U.S. government's One China policy and the CCP's One China principle. So CCP's One China principle basically said, Taiwan is a part of the communist China, or you can say the People's Republic of China. That's the way it is. And the U.S. government's One China policy basically say Taiwan is a part of China, but not a part of the People's Republic of China. So there is a key difference there. Basically, U.S. government recognize culturally, geographically, historically, race-wise, Taiwan is a part of a general term of China, but the U.S. government never recognized Taiwan is a part of the communist China, which is the People's Republic of China. So there is a difference. But now that the communist leader in Beijing just say, they want the U.S. government to change its One China policy to become CCP's One China principle. I think that both presidents, already make it clear when President Biden during his term repeated 4 times during his 4 years that if China invade Taiwan, U.S. is going to intervene militarily. And last year, when Trump was running for the election campaign, he said if China invade Taiwan, he's going to bomb Beijing.
There you go. Well, the Wall Street Journal goes on to say, Xi is no longer satisfied with the U.S. position adopted by the administration of President Joe Biden that Washington does not support Taiwanese independence. That statement reassured Beijing didn't deviate from the U.S. strategically ambiguous One China policy, which acknowledges Beijing's claim over Taiwan without endorsing it. There's that wonderful ambiguity there. For Xi, the difference between not supporting Taiwan's independence and explicitly opposing it is more than semantics. It would signal a shift in U.S. policy from a neutral position to one that actively aligns with Beijing against Taiwanese sovereignty, a change that could further cement Xi's hold on power at home, because that's what he's banking everything on, was his whole legacy is the retaking, as it were, the reunification of Taiwan with the mainland or with the CCP. So,
well, the reunification doesn't make sense because they never owned Taiwan, right?
Well, that's the rub. So that's what I was stumped with. What reunification is he talking about? He's never.
Well, they say Taiwan ever since ancient time is a part of China, which is not true. Taiwan in the early 17th century was actually ruled by a Spanish Empire, and then after that it was before the Spanish Empire. Then it's no, after Spanish Empire it was uh, it, it was what was the country of Holland. What was the empire of a Danish there's a couple of European countries basically ruled Taiwan for the 17th century before the.
Oh, okay. Could one have been Portugal?
No,
No?
that not Portugal, but there's another empire. I've all of a sudden I can't get it. I'm just my mind's turned blank. That there's it's the Formosa, the word Formosa. That's the what was the Formosa from?
I don't know.
Not Portuguese. Someone says Portuguese, but it was actually
Some other country at any rate. And
yeah.
so this was predating anything that had anything to do with the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, of course. And then it before and then it was and then in 1661 it was taken by the Qing dynasty of China. And in 1895, Qing dynasty lost the Sino-Japanese War to Japan and signed the Shimonoseki Treaty with Japan and gave the sovereignty of Taiwan to Japan. And Japan has it until 1951. It signed the Treaty of San Francisco and then gave up the sovereignty.
Mhm.
So, and then it was basically from that point on, it's a sovereignty undecided based on U.S. government.
Okay. So to cope with this, the United States came up with a one China policy, which says in essence that there is one China, and the continental China and Taiwan are that one China. However, the U.S. one China policy does not recognize the fact that Taiwan belongs to the Chinese Communist Party, or that the China belongs to the Chinese Communist Party. So that is the ambiguity. We agree that Taiwan is part of China, but not necessarily part of the CCP. And that is what Xi Jinping wants Trump to give up in exchange for some kind of deal. Now, we all know how much Donald Trump loves the art of the deal. And being the deal maker supreme, he's looking for deals. And he's not been getting them, except from our erstwhile friends in the world. So one deal he's looking for is a deal with Vladimir Putin over Ukraine. Not getting that deal at all. Another deal he's looking for is some kind of economic trade package with China. And he's not been getting that deal at all either. So it's been tough sledding for deal making for Donald Trump, which brings us to a point that I found in my news, which is the title of it was Dare to Fight, How China's Refined Art of the Deal After Years of Dealing with Trump. So just hours before U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order to settle the tumult surrounding TikTok, Beijing launched a sudden salvo in its ongoing trade war with Washington. As Trump's order brought the fate of the popular short video app closer to a resolution, a number of American firms were being hit with trade curbs. It not only marked the latest example of bilateral tensions flaring up during Trump's second presidential term, but it also reflected a pattern of tit-for-tat tactics that Beijing has employed with carefully planned reactive measures aimed at maximum leverage. And as we've learned in going through our show today, that seems to be China's expertise, is doing things that give them maximum leverage in working with whoever they're working with, whether it's one of their Belt and Road partners or whether it's working with Donald Trump. It's looking for making, the art of the deal, as it were. Analysts attribute the tactical shift to Beijing learning from the past, as well as to China's rising economic and tech prowess, and with new blood injected into its negotiation teams, having named Li Chenggang international trade representative in mid-April. Despite quarrels and trade tensions, the experts say that direct communications between Trump and President Xi have prevented bilateral ties from breaking down, leaving hope that the world's two largest economies will still eventually reach a trade deal. Since Trump 2.0, China's negotiating stance has become more hardline and tit-for-tat, said Tu Tianzhen, a senior economist at the Economist Intelligence Unit. It can do so because it has a bargaining chips, he explained, referring to Trump cards that Beijing has cultivated over many years, including its control over rare earth magnets and other critical components. And Li's appointment signaled a broader strategic recalibration based on lessons learned from past engagements, particularly with the first Trump administration. This shift is mirrored in China's tactical playbook. Measures like export controls, while seemingly escalatory, are calculated to create leverage. Meanwhile, Chinese authorities have embraced the guiding principle of dare to fight and be good at fighting, as President Xi has reiterated since 2019, when Beijing was embroiled in the trade war under Trump's first presidential term. The expression also has used during the Communist Party's 20th National Congress in 2022, establishing it as a long-term strategy. Dare to fight and be proud of fighting. China's economic resilience has become increasingly evident as its gross domestic product has defied pandemic setbacks and U.S. curbs, staying at or above 5% in the past 2 years, while maneuvering Washington's various choke points. Now, we talked about a little bit earlier, Nansu, about how China has, the CCP puts out these 5-year plans, and they always seem to achieve their stated goals, which is a 5% growth in the economy. But how the heck do they do that?
Well, first of all, let me go back to what we were talking about. It was a Dutch empire.
Dutch. There you go.
Okay, so the Taiwan was the first, in the early 17th century, ruled by the Spanish Empire and then the Dutch Empire. Formosa was a Dutch war, and of course, some argue it's the Portuguese war, but we'll just leave that. And then Qing Dynasty and the Japanese government, and then after 1951, you know what? After 1951, the U.S. government has basically a legal way to claim the sovereignty of Taiwan, right?
Right.
Because when the San Francisco Treaty was signed, Taiwan officially became a land up for grab. And based on the international law, for the island, nobody has the sovereignty. And whoever has it, it's yours. And from 1945 to 1951, as we mentioned, the supreme leader of Japan was U.S. military commander, right?
Yeah, Douglas MacArthur.
Yeah, MacArthur was the very first one, ruling Japan, after 1945, and then wherever his, after he left. So, so in 1951, by 1951, when San Francisco Treaty was signed, the U.S. government has managed Taiwan for 6 years. So therefore, when Taiwan became a land up for grab, U.S. government has, 100% legality to claim the ownership of Taiwan. Except, we didn't do it. We in 1949 we entrusted the people's we entrusted the Republic of China, which is Taiwan's government right now, to manage the island. So until today, so the sovereignty of Taiwan has not yet been decided. That's how it is.
Yeah, except for the fact that if the island belongs to whoever's controlling it, it belongs to the Taiwan government, which
Yep.
is yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, so and Xi Jinping wants Donald Trump to give up that position, that the Taiwan government is free and independent. They want the United States to declare that, in effect, the island of Taiwan belongs to the CCP.
That's correct. So
So now we're negotiating, right?
now they want
Mhm.
they want Trump to give Taiwan away.
Yes.
And Xi Jinping is going to now on the 20th, around 22nd, 23rd of this month, CCP is going to have a fourth plenary meeting in Beijing. And then at the end of the month, I think around October 30th, Xi Jinping is going to meet Trump in South Korea in the APEC meeting, Asian Pacific Economic Summit. So I think that's when when the negotiation is going to take place.
Well, and it's ongoing as we speak because we have representatives talking with each other. And but this article in the Wall Street Journal makes note of the fact that the CCP has become more intransigent in dealing with Trump. So everything is now a tit for tat. You give me this, I take that kind of situation. And that the CCP is asking for those things that give it greatest leverage in any kind of negotiation. So, in effect, Trump is meeting Trump in this negotiation because the CCP has adopted the art of the deal in dealing with Trump. And so we don't seem to be getting anywhere with our negotiations because when Trump goes to Russia and says, Vladimir, let's do a deal. Vladimir smiles at him and says, we love you. And Trump goes away and feeling, well, maybe I'm getting somewhere, but he's not. And the reason he is not, from my perspective, is that China and Russia have what they need to say no to Trump.
Well, that's what it is, right? They had China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and bunch of small.
They have the oil.
Yeah,
they have the raw
oil,
materials,
and they have whatever they need. They're not getting the food from Ukraine, but they're getting those food from Brazil.
Yes,
instead.
and Argentina, and yes.
Yeah, so
everybody who has been admiring our industrial agriculture, set up their own industrial agriculture, is now selling China the food it needs to survive.
That's right. So now, wow, it's a tough negotiation. That's all I can say.
Yeah. And so do we see any chance of breakthroughs? I don't.
I don't think we are afford to give away the sovereignty of Taiwan. We just not afford to do that. Taiwan, and also it's the value that we pay respect. That Taiwan has a democracy, Taiwan has a freedom, Taiwan respect to the human rights. So we can let Taiwan become the next Hong Kong.
Beyond that, strategically speaking, one of the great conquerors of all time, of course, was Genghis Khan, who had the horse, and he had that great grasslands highway that stretched from China to Europe. And with the horse, you could control everything. You flew across the land and took one place and then the next and then the next. And in a very real sense, Taiwan is the cork in the bottle that holds that huge Chinese fleet at bay and preventing it, in a sense, from becoming the Genghis Khan of the New World, because it could use its huge navy that we, of course, built for them to storm all over the world and enforce its common destiny on the world. So Taiwan's worth fighting for.
Yeah, it's true.
We're fighting for the world when we fight for Taiwan.
And also, at least we are fighting for the semiconductor chips.
In the short term, yes. In the short term, yes. So it's a very exciting world we live in. Whether we want it to be so exciting or not, it is. And there's a great conflict going on between China and its allies, Russia, Iran, North Korea, against the West, its values, its freedom versus slavery, in essence. And every week, the dynamics of this conflict change, but no problem, because Nansu and Michael Olson, the Gang of Two, are keeping track of it, and as the best we can, and we try to parse that news and figure out what it really means, and argue back and forth, and hopefully make some sense of it for you. So as we mentioned at the opening, we're going into October now. October is the month for the fourth plenum. Might be some interesting things happening at the very top of the CCP. And we are here to keep track of it for you, so please do stay tuned. Join us next week, same time, same place, as we pick up the news. We steer across that great expanse of the Pacific Ocean from our home port here at SantaCruzVoice.com and try to make sense of it all for you. We do thank you for tuning in. This has been China Now with your Gang of Two, Nansu, Michael Olson, and you as well. I guess you make it a gang of three. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next week.